And for those of us with these big, lovable breeds, well, there's one health issue that tends to send shivers down our spines. Bloat.
It's definitely a concern, and one that every owner, especially of those larger breeds, needs to be aware of.
We're diving into some research today, actually, that comes from a Cane Corso podcast and some articles about bloat. And while those Corsos are incredible dogs, this information, it's relevant for anyone with a large breed at home, really.
Absolutely. We're talking Great Danes, German Shepherds, even some mixes. If you've got a big dog, this is worth paying attention to.
The thing about bloat that's so scary is just how quickly it can become an emergency.
Right. It's not something you can put off until tomorrow, you know. If it's happening, it needs immediate attention.
Exactly. So to help us all understand exactly what's going on inside our furry friends when we talk about bloat, let's bring in our expert. Can you walk us through the mechanics of it?
Sure, and it's not just about a dog being big, it's the shape of their chest, too. It's like those deep-chested breeds like their Cane Corsos, your Great Danes, even some German Shepherds. They're unfortunately prone to this, and it has to do with the way their stomach sits in there and a ligament that runs along their spine.
Oh, wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, imagine this. Their chest cavity is kind of like one of those long, skinny balloons, right? And when the stomach fills up with gas, sometimes it can actually twist. And that's when things get really dangerous really fast.
So it's like twisting that balloon in the middle, cutting off.
Exactly. Blood flow gets cut off and it becomes a life or death situation.
Okay, that makes it so much clearer, that visual. Thank you.
Yeah.
And, one of the things we always hear is that using raised food bowls can help prevent bloat, right?
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But the research we looked at actually advised against it, unless a vet specifically recommends it. That was news to me.
There's a lot of factors at play, and what works for one dog might not work for another. It's definitely a conversation to have with your vet.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's talk symptoms then. If we as owners see our dog exhibiting certain behaviors, what should set off like major alarm bells for us?
Well, you never want to rely on just one single symptom, you know what I mean? It's really about looking at the whole picture, a combination of things.
Okay.
So like if you notice your dog's belly looks abnormally distended, and I'm not talking about just a big meal here, I mean like really bloated.
Right.
And especially if they're trying to vomit but nothing's coming up, that's a huge red flag.
Oh, wow.
Combine that with, let's say, excessive drooling, restlessness, pacing like they can't get comfortable, maybe even a hunched posture. Any of those together, it's time to get to a vet immediately. Don't wait.
You describing those symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds me of a terrifying experience a friend of mine had with her Labrador Retriever. Out of nowhere, he started showing all those signs. Frantic pacing, the bloated look, the whole 9 yards. They rushed him to the emergency vet, thankfully, and he pulled through. But it was touch and go there for a bit. It really it hammered home how quickly things can turn serious with bloat. That's just terrifying. Makes you realize it could happen to any of us with big dogs, right? So let's talk about what we can do, to prevent this from happening in the first place.
Right, because knowledge is power here.
One of the most surprising things I found, actually, was that it's not just what we feed our dogs, but how. Like that whole thing with the raised bowls.
Yeah, what about them?
They actually advise against it unless your vet specifically recommends it.
Huh. Well, there is a lot of misinformation out there.
Right. But one thing they did recommend were slow feeder bowls.
Hmm.
To get them to actually work for their food,
Oh, interesting.
especially for those breeds that just inhale their food.
Like it's going out of style. Yeah.
The Cane Corso podcast actually mentioned a couple specifically, the Outward Hound Fun Feeder and the Slow Feed Interactive Bloat Stop Dog Bowl. Apparently, they're designed to really make a dog work for it.
Oh, I love that. Making mealtime like a puzzle for them.
Exactly. And speaking of what we're feeding, they really emphasized like avoiding those cheap dog foods that are just packed with fillers.
Oh, absolutely. You want to stay away from that stuff as much as possible.
All that corn syrup, meat byproducts, artificial colors.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Not good at all.
Not only is it, lacking in nutrition, but it can actually contribute to gas and digestive upset.
Which, when you're talking about bloat, is the last thing you want.
Right, exactly. So we've covered slow feeding and good quality food. What else can we do to make a bloat safe environment for our dogs?
Well, one thing that really stuck with me was how much they emphasized keeping your dog calm after mealtime.
Yeah, that old saying, no running after eating.
It's not just an old wives' tale.
Right. I always heard it, but never really understood why.
It's because when their stomach's full, especially for those deep-chested breeds, Any vigorous activity just increases the risk of the stomach twisting.
So no roughhousing, no intense games of fetch.
No, no, no. At least an hour after they eat.
Gotta let them digest in peace.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, like, we can't forget water. Fresh water all the time.
Yeah.
Dehydration just makes everything worse.
Oh, without a doubt.
Hydration is key for everything.
Everything.
This is all such good information. Even for people who don't have dogs, it's so important to share.
Absolutely.
Imagine being able to give a tip that could save a dog's life.
Right. Knowledge is power.
It really is. The more we know, the better we can be for our furry friends.
Couldn't agree more.
Wow, I feel like we've covered so much ground today on this whole bloat thing.
It's a lot to take in, but super important,
It really is. I mean, as dog owners, I think sometimes we get caught up in, the love and the fun, which is great.
Of course, of course.
But we've got to remember that, like, being responsible for these guys, especially the big guys, means understanding the risks and how to keep them safe.
Absolutely. It's not all belly rubs and treats.
Exactly. And that actually reminds me, we should probably loop our vets into this conversation.
Oh, for sure.
They play such a crucial role. I mean, we've talked about symptoms and we've talked about prevention, but what about, like, the regular checkups?
Regular vet visits are non-negotiable, especially for large breeds. Those guys need to be seen regularly.
Okay, so that's like a must-do for any owner. And during those checkups, our vets can really help us understand our individual dog's risk factors, right?
Exactly. They can assess their overall health, their body condition, all of that factors into their risk for bloat.
And I guess they can also recommend, like, specific preventative measures if needed.
Exactly. Some vets actually recommend a prophylactic gastropexy for certain breeds.
A prophylactic gastropexy. Now, that's not something I've ever heard of.
Yeah, so basically it's a surgical procedure where they actually tack the stomach to the abdominal wall to help prevent it from twisting.
Whoa, hold on. They, like, attach it.
Yep, to prevent the twisting. Pretty amazing, right?
That's incredible. It's like they're one step ahead of the game. Veterinary medicine is pretty wild these days.
It really is. They're doing some incredible things.
It makes you wonder, though,
Yeah.
like, if dogs understood how dangerous this bloat thing is, would they be a bit more careful about, scarfing down their food?
Right, like, hey, slow down, buddy. You're going to twist your insides.
It's a funny thought. But at the end of the day, they depend on us,
Yeah.
They depend on us to make these decisions, even if it means a change in their routine to keep them healthy and safe.
100%. We're their advocates,
It's a big responsibility,
Yeah.
but it comes with the territory of having these furry companions in our lives.
Well, we've covered a lot today, haven't
We really have a lot of ground covered.
we? Dove into bloat, why it's so dangerous, what causes it, how to prevent it,
All the scary but important stuff.
and most importantly, I think, we walked away with some really practical knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. We can actually use. So to everyone listening, thank you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of bloat. Remember, knowledge is power. And when it comes to the health of our furry friends, well, a little knowledge can go a long, long way. It's all about being informed and proactive. Here's to keeping those tails wagging and our beloved companions happy, healthy, and by our sides for years to come.